farming AI. This is the hottest topic here at the FIRA. Robots meet the fields, and we've got an amazing panel today to start digging into that. I know a lot of folks here are deep into AI and farming, and I think coming from the Midwest, I'm based in Chicago, a lot of farmers maybe don't quite use AI yet as part of their everyday life. So we're really at an interesting time where all of this is coming together. So I'm going to start. We can kind of give everyone a chance to introduce themselves. I'm, of course, Michael Hertzer with Bloomberg News, and we're going to start with Ricken from Digital Green. And if you could tell us a little bit about Digital Green and yourself, and then we have a nice example of how AI is really kind of working already on farming.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Great to be on this panel with all of you. At Digital Green, we've been working on how digital technology can improve the efficiency of ag extension programs around the world for the last 19 years. We started with videos by and for farmers to share improved practices more efficiently. But about 2.5 years ago, with GPT-3's release and also the advances of many Gen AI models, we saw an opportunity for farmers for the first time to be able to flip the paradigm of ag extension so that they could ask their own questions in multimodal voice, text, and images to triage questions on their farm. As an example, in rural Kenya, I was just there a couple weeks ago, there was a woman who was living with her family and wasn't earning enough income to be able to move out. She used our farmer chat application to use local language Gikuyu voice and images to choose her own adventure of setting up a poultry production operation, learned about what kind of broiler to purchase, where to get chicks, where to get vaccinations. And within just a 60-day period, she was able to set up her own poultry operation and earn enough income to be able to move out of her family's house. That kind of transformational change we haven't been able to see in the last 19 years. And we're able to do it at way reduced costs because of the increasing efficiency of both large language models, but also small language models now. And there is, of course, a lot of tuning that needs to be done of these AI systems to support the ag-specific vocabulary and vernacular that farmers apply, to tune these models not to hallucinate, and to connect them with local service providers, and to employ local agronomists and veterinarians to do the reinforcement learning with human feedback to make these systems work for these communities. But they're incredibly powerful for the scale and diversity of the farming communities that we all serve.
Yeah, I found it really interesting that Ricken is based just down the road in Davis, and you think about the long history of the land-grant university extension programs, which provide so many resources to help farmers with everyday needs of how to treat their crops. And this is a different kind of method to bring all of that intel to farmers, I guess mostly around the world. So that's real. I think it's just a really interesting example of kind of the possibilities out there. And from there, we can move to John, and he's from Meta, which is obviously a big player, and he's here and even willing to maybe listen to a few leads, and he's on the lookout for things to look into.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Good morning. My name is John Boxstance, and I'm an innovation policy manager based out of Meta's office in Austin, Texas. And we are big believers in an open approach to AI innovation, and agriculture is just this incredible field that really demonstrates the value of what's possible with AI. There's just unparalleled potential for AI to boost human productivity, to accelerate economic growth, and to unlock breakthroughs in medicine and science. And an open source approach ensures that more people around the world have access to the benefits and opportunities of AI, and that includes in agriculture. And it's something that we believe strongly in at Meta is that you know, this is possible because an open source AI model gives control to developers, including developers like some up here in agriculture, and many out there in the audience. Gives control to adapt AI models to fit the very specific needs and opportunities of AI. As an open source AI model, Llama offers the agriculture community like the ability to retain control of data processing and storage. It, as an open source model, Llama is available to download for free, so that means the AI ecosystem can build, deploy, and scale AI solutions at a lower cost. And so Llama, which has been downloaded more than 1.2 billion times around the world, so I'm sure there are some other examples out there or other open source AI models. If there's anyone in the audience who's using our tools, I'd love to meet you. And ultimately, it means lower cost, better data security, and more innovation, so better value for farmers and those who depend on them.
Thank you, John. And Dhruv, one of the people already working with Meta is Dhruv here, and he can tell us about that.
Yes. So, hi. Hi. Hello, everyone. My name is Dhruv Didi, and I'm founder of Solo Tech. So I'm an engineer, and I get to deploy these models in the physical world. And many of the organizations we work with are farming organizations. I did my undergrad in Illinois, so I'm very familiar with agriculture and the importance of technology in agriculture. And long story short about Solo is, instead of having big models in the cloud that know quantum physics and swimming and whatever else, we tune models which are focused in on your domain to be available on device. So basically, when you're in your farm or in a rural environment and you don't have connectivity, you still want access to intelligence. We fine-tune the intelligence to your domain, for example, weed detection or soil quality, and we allow you to use that on your devices right now. So I have a tablet here. I'm happy to share that with you later of how you can have some hydroponics-based models or like specific models, small, it doesn't know everything, but it is focused in on that domain, and it can help people in the real world locally, and it's a fine-tuned Llama model. So happy to be powering that open source community. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Rishi here is Metal Dog Labs, and tell us.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Rishi Pete. Thank you for having me here. And I've been coming to this show for the last couple of years. So it's always great to see all the progress that is being made. And even though we're talking a lot about AI as if it's a new thing, if you just walk around anywhere you see any vision system in any of these amazing robots out there, they're using AI, right? So AI has been around for quite some time. I think where I spend a lot of time on is working with organizations who want to adopt AI and use that for certain applications which create value for either their customers or for their own teams. There's a lot of talk about AI, Meta and all these guys, they're spending literally billions and trillions of dollars in building these models, which is fantastic. We need that infrastructure that needs to be built. And at the same time, organizations throughout the world need to use those models and adopt them and adapt them to their use cases. So that's where I spend a lot of time on helping organizations to understand what is needed. How can you take these ingredients, these tools, which are very powerful and amazing, and adapt them to your particular use case? Because at the end of the day, you have to be able to create value in an economic sense and at a cost which is reasonable and which is profitable for you in the long term. So that's what I focus my time on.
I'd love to kind of zoom out and hear how you guys are looking at the customer base, and are you finding that you have ideas that you're bringing to farmers, or are farmers coming to you for ideas, or how are you kind of penetrating the kind of here as we sit in Woodland, California, and just the farmers all over the world, how do you sort of reach them? Anyone want to take a?
Yeah, so it's a grassroots effort. literally and figuratively. So, you know, there is a lot of hunger in the farming community already for technology. I mean, look out here. These are the biggest robots or automated machines that you'll see on the planet, right? They're all here. So I think farmers are very fluent in technology and they want their tools to be good. There is a hunger for innovation. I think what has been missing is, you know, the previous set of technology was restrictive. This new genre of AI, which is like more adaptable to fuzzy environments, is more conducive to letting farmers and also like new industries use it in the real world. And I think that is allowing for farmers to just interact with it in a small way. First, to just answer some like daily questions, and then include it in like more critical, harvesting workflows, or something that is more even critical to like planning for future years and so on. So I think farmers are very aware of the tools out there, and we work with a bunch of farms in Santa Clara County, who we reached out through farmers markets actually. And yeah, what we see is there's actually a lot of hunger for this technology. They're just looking for the right platforms to start using it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is where Meta is so excited about what we're learning from the agriculture community, because there's just such a vast array of data that's available that's really ripe for AI innovation. And what I mean by that is that, first of all, like I mentioned, we've open sourced our llama models, and we have other like vision models. They're called SAM and Dino, that allow technology that's already out there in the world to be able to tap into these benefits, disconnected from the internet, still making an impact. And I think what really makes a difference is the technology that can adapt to what farmers and the agriculture community might already have. So it may be sensors on your equipment, in some cases it's smartphones, but we're also really excited that Meta has really been a leader in our wearables AI technology. So I'm wearing our Ray-Ban Meta AI glasses. These have cameras, microphones, and speakers on them, so that you could do simple things like take pictures or videos hands-free. I was in the Army before coming to Meta, so I know what it's like being out there. Like, your hands are full, heavy stuff. You don't have necessarily the extra hands for new technology, but if you can wear it, you can then not only take pictures, but we've actually embedded our Meta AI chatbot into these glasses. And just last month, we've announced that we're opening up our developer access toolkit for these glasses, which means that developers around the world can begin to tap into the form factor like this, which is just really the ideal form factor for interacting with AI. They can see what you see, hear what you hear, and we can begin to tap into the benefits of innovation across the ecosystem. And an example of that is AgriPoint, which is a company based out of North Carolina, but they do a lot of work here in California, especially when it comes to like nuts and citrus, to be able to make data solutions accessible for farmers with the tools that they already have. So they tell me they've been working with smartphones for years, but it means that you're sacrificing a hand to take pictures, to take videos. But now our AI glasses would allow them to be able to tap into those same benefits, but be able to make that work with voice commands. Or, our next generation of this technology, we actually have these neural bands that you can wear around your wrist, and just small hand gestures, just connected to like the movements of your muscles in your wrists, allow you to navigate all the benefits of AI, hands-free, again, out in the field, that we're really excited about what we're going to learn from this community.
Yeah, I think so I don't work directly with farmers. I work with companies who work with farmers, and one of the common questions I get from companies or organizations is, hey, we want to do something with AI. How should we think about our AI strategy? And I personally feel that that's a wrong position to start from, because AI is a means to an end. It's not the end in itself, it's a tool. And so you need to think about what are the problems you're trying to solve, and then evaluate what are the right tools. And AI is an extremely powerful tool that you can use. And as folks here are saying, AI, I think, is very good at picking up context and understanding the context if you give it the right data. And I don't need to tell this crowd, agriculture is very context dependent. How you farm in one place is very different for the same crop in some other place. So in those situations, using AI to pick up that context, like what Digital Green is doing, right? Understanding the context of the farmer, their language, are they a man or woman? Like all of these things, the AI is very good at picking up that context. So I feel very excited about using AI as a tool, but at the end of the day, it is a tool. It's a means to an end. You still have to solve either existing problems in new ways or try to tackle new problems that you could not solve because you did not have the right tools to solve those problems. So, yeah.
Rishi, you mentioned before we started how the costs for experiments are coming down a little bit, and that was kind of good to hear. At the same time, investments into the space have kind of bobbed around a little bit, and here and there's a little softness, but also some bigger players throwing a lot of money in. Can you kind of talk about where we are as far as, I guess, the potential investment and advancement?
Yeah, I think, it's interesting to compare what is happening right now with, previous eras of when new technology comes along, right? So when you think about the internet or the mobile phone, early on, a massive amount of investment goes into building the infrastructure to actually use and satisfy certain use cases, right? So if you think about the internet, Cisco and these companies, they spend billions of dollars in building out an infrastructure. And then, that allowed a lot of other applications to come along. And I think what Meta and Google and OpenAI, they're doing is they're building the infrastructure for doing, building more and more applications on AI. So that infrastructure build out is extremely critical. Without that infrastructure, the cost will be very high. And that is something that I'm seeing a lot. Like for example, if you use a Llama model, it's free to download and use. And what that allows is that cost of running an experiment has gone down significantly. And so you can run a lot of experiments and learn about the types of business problems you're trying to solve. And so for a few $1,000 or a few, much lower than what it would take, let's say 3 years ago or 4 years ago, you can run many different experiments and really explore the shape of the problem you're trying to solve. And I think that is very interesting and exciting. So let Meta and these guys spend all the billions of dollars into building that infrastructure, and then companies here and for example Digital Green, they have not spent $1 billion on doing this, right? They can run these experiments very quickly. So we are sort of standing on the investment done by these big hyperscalers, and then the question is how do we take advantage of that for the right use cases? That's where it gets very interesting.
And maybe John too, you can just tell us, being such a big player, what is in it for you guys?
Well, sure. Our approach to open source has really been a part of the company's DNA since we started more than 20 years ago. We are at one time Facebook, a much smaller company that built a lot of our solutions on open source technology. Beyond that, we've had what was originally the Facebook AI Research Lab, or FAIR. We have a different name for it now that we're Meta. But our FAIR Lab has been around for more than 10 years, open sourcing AI models. So it is really important to our culture and how we've built. But also, we just know from history that the best way to make a technology the industry standard is to open source it. When you give it away for free, it opens up the entire ecosystem to be able to adapt and build much more refined solutions that I just love getting to hear from Digital Green and Solotech and others because Meta doesn't have like an agriculture division, but by us open sourcing our models and eventually opening up access to our AI glasses, we can unleash all the innovative might of the American economy to be able to build new solutions that are adapted specifically to the needs of the agriculture community. And then I also see it across healthcare and finance and other industries. But I'm really excited about agriculture because there's just so much room and so much data available to make an impact.
And what I was going to add is that it is really incredible about the investments that big tech is placing in frontier AI model development. And there's obviously an update every couple hours at this point. So it's important to have one leg there to understand what is the latest opportunities that we can bring into the agricultural domain. But there's so many more opportunities with the existing models that have already been published, especially these open source ones like Llama, because there's one track is to be able to fine tune these types of models for the agricultural domain using the models and the data of these farming communities that we all work with to align them better to their needs and interests, because most of the corpus that these models have been trained upon have been not so much in the agricultural domain and have not been so much in the global south for this type of small farmers that, say, Digital Green works with. But in addition, these models also include now the small language models that can, as Dhruv mentioned, can now be placed on device for us, whether that is on farm equipment or robotics platforms, or for the type of small farmers that we work with who have limited connectivity, and to be able to run these models on device on their phones and to be able to get answers to their queries. I think this is a huge opportunity for us in the agricultural space, and where, again, just using the off-the-shelf models may not serve the totality of the purpose that these farmers are looking for, may not be attuned to their demographics, to their agroecological conditions, but making the investments to take their dark data and placing them into these AI systems, seeing usage patterns, and then prioritizing what kind of gaps these models are showing so that we can close the issues that the models have, can become a public good of sorts that then other AI companies and government ministries of agriculture can then build their own applications, their own bots on top of, since we all can't be investing in duplicating each other's efforts.
Yes, and to extend it further, I would say, open source not just for the goodness of the heart or good for the planet. I would say it's important for mastery. If you have any tool, if you're an engineer, if you want to be good at it, you need to be able to play with it, right? You can only do that if it's open source. So to build effective tools for the future, the only way is actually open source, because only open source will get enough volume of data, enough repetitions in fine tuning, and basically enough iterations in the real world to actually be effective, compared to a group of labs or a company figuring out what physical intelligence should look like for agriculture around the world. Like, that just doesn't scale, you know. So I think it's like a key strategic move, not just for good for the planet reasons, but it's better engineering. So and I think that's why I'm more driven to use these models.
We hear every doctor's office will use AI, every investment firm will use AI, and where do you guys think we are on that continuum for farming, and when do we get to a point where every farmer is using AI?
I can start that off. So I think there's a few frameworks to look at, what AI is. Obviously we get to use it, as like an oracle for all our answers. But more realistically, it's an autocompute. So what AI right now is, it has all the capabilities. It even has guardrails, but it doesn't have alignment. You know, it's a specific problem that engineers are working on, like the context that you gather from all these things, right? How do you prioritize that? And that's not a hard problem for engineering, it's a hard problem for humans as well. I'm sure every day we all prioritize our day and we think about how we could have done it better, right? And now AI has to do it and we blame it when it doesn't do well, and we expect it to be the magical answer, right? So I think what's going on is we're going through this transition period that key industries which care about ROI are using it and getting comfortable with their tool. And I think as 2026 rolls out and we have more hardware which is capable of running AI, I think we'll have more people using it, more people being fluent at it, and feeling more comfortable with the constraints of it instead of just expecting it to solve all their problems magically.
I'd also add that in some of these small scale producer markets like India or East Africa, many of these farming communities are already using platforms like WhatsApp and Meta AI embedded in WhatsApp, or on searching on YouTube for different types of solutions. And they're actually some of the first adopters of some of this technology, because they may have extension agents, as you mentioned, Michael. There are parallels to the land grant type of University of California system that we have here in Yolo County that exist in Ethiopia, in India, in Kenya. But they're not able to serve the very diverse needs that these small farmers are often growing, a combo of cereal crops, horticulture, some livestock, and expecting one agricultural extension agent to be able to service all those varying needs of an individual farmer is extremely challenging. But being able to have a first line of triage with an AI system that speaks in the local language, that they don't need to try to describe the pest or the disease that they might be seeing on their animal or on their crop, is a huge unlock for these small-scale producers, especially on the front lines of a changing climate and where they don't always know what is the solution or the issue even in the first place that they're trying to address. And these AI systems, as Dhruv mentioned, don't work perfectly out of the box. They have not been trained for these particular farming contexts or these particular farmers. But you get all this data as farmers are interacting with these systems with photos that initially may not be able to be resolved to classify what is this pest or what is this crop. But you see this data, and then you can have local agronomists identify and annotate some of those data sets or images and use that for training the AI systems, not in a trying to cover the whole world basis, but rather based on what the farmers' actual priorities are. And by doing so, then we are able to then create some of these more aligned AI models that better address the needs and interests of these communities.
Yeah, and I would say that it's very clearly like early in this revolution, and this alignment that Dhruv and Ricken are talking about, it really requires user feedback and more data and more applications and more just experimentation, like Rishi was talking about, to be able to see where these AI solutions can make the biggest impact. And some just like very practical examples that I think are important for this group to think about. So one of my favorite chatbots that I've been able to learn about in this space is called Crop Wizard out of the University of Illinois. They have an AI farms program that uses Llama to not only make vast amounts of information about agriculture available to farmers in the field and their staff. They've been able to train this with more than 680,000 documents, which is just like baffling to me, the amount of data that's available through a text chat. But there's so much more than just chatting with an AI tool. Ricken was talking quite a bit about using images, and whether it's with these glasses one day or other data inputs. But I would encourage all of you, in your organizations and through your work, to find applications that, instead of necessarily needing to take a picture and text it to somebody to look at, try it with an AI chatbot to see if you take a picture, it can analyze the image. Also, translations is really an important function here that our Llama models and others are designed for up to 8 different languages, including Spanish, including others, that can just immediately translate maybe inputs in Spanish into English and vice versa. That really speeds up the communications and operations, just saves time. And the more you all are finding applications and working with the vendors here who are experimenting in this space, the more the ecosystem will learn. The open source community is great at collaboration, and I think that's really what's going to drive things forward, but this group has the opportunity to be leaders in the space.
Yeah, excuse me. I think the way I think about this is, what are the type, again going back to the problems statement, right? What are the types of problems which AI is good at solving, right? And what are the prereqs that you need to actually apply AI? So obviously, as these folks have said, you need sort of good quality diverse data sets. That is a big challenge in agriculture. Like for example, the 680,000 documents, those documents were all spread all over the place, but somebody took the effort to go and collect all those documents and ingest in the model so that the model can respond to that, right? So I think that is very important. Like, is the data fragmented? Can you make it available to the model? Like, I think those type of problems are good for AI. I think the other piece which is very important and which they have not said explicitly, but it's sort of implicitly said, is that you need to understand the domain that you're working in, right? For an agronomist to say, I'm seeing an image of this disease or pest, and I know what it is, having that knowledge and understanding is super important. So you can't just throw a Llama model or a ChatGPT model out of the box and expect it to work. So you need diverse data sets, you need sort of deep domain understanding, and I think that's where farmers and people who work in the farming ecosystem, they have that knowledge in spades, right? The question is, how do you sort of get that knowledge, and can you push that into the AI models, right? So that they can do the job that is needed. And I think a lot of these AI models are really good at where the response or the answer that you are giving is, like, sometimes it's not 100% sure what is the right answer. Like, okay, it's going to maybe rain tomorrow, like I'm seeing this type of a disease, what should I do? And you could have different ways in which you could solve that same problem. And I think that's where AI models are really good at. So if you see problems which have some of these characteristics, like something you need deep domain knowledge, there's fragmented data sets, you need to really understand the context, and you need to sort of experiment and learn along the way. I think if your problem fits these type of characteristics, then AI is a really good tool to try to address those. And I think that's what we'll see, like which problems get solved first is where they check more of these boxes, is where AI would be very beneficial to as a tool to solve those problems.
Great. And do we have any questions from the audience at this point?
So any questions for the panel? Okay.
Warren Clark, CCI Marketing Ag News Center, Austin, Texas. I'm looking forward to hearing about how you see the Meta glasses integrated with more of the, things that are already out there happening in agriculture, the data sets that are available, the solutions that are available, please.
Absolutely, like I mentioned at the top, so thank you for that question. One of my goals being here is that we know that there is a vast community of developers and innovators who are using our models, but because it's an open source model, we don't always know who they are. We don't sell the model to people, we don't have access, we don't have a client relationship in many cases. So I am excited to learn from you all if anyone is using these models. And one example of that is this firm AgriPoint that I mentioned, who really specializes in making data accessible in the form factor that a farmer might already be using. So it might be a smartphone. We're talking to them a lot about how they might use the glasses. But what sets them up to be leaders in the space is that they already have an app that could be integrated with the glasses and be able to kind of tap into that hands-free AI experience. It's very early days for this developer access toolkit. We just announced it last month. We're like figuring out how things work, but our intention really is to make it available very broadly. So I would invite you all to be thinking about how can you, in a very practical sense, would need to be some kind of mobile app that then could be connected to the glasses that could benefit from being able to interact with your AI solutions either verbally, through our voice commands, or through images.
Thank you for the question. Any other questions for the panel? Okay.
Hey, hi, this is Ketan from Reservoir Farms. So two questions. First question is, how do you see RAG being deployed as a very specific use case for AI application? Because given the properties of the RAG, it helps in building like domain-specific solutions. And secondly, how do you see agriculture going ahead more into the physical AI zone and not just sticking to like normalized AI zone? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so I can share some insight on that. So, RAG, fine-tuning, quantization, these are all techniques of the current times. Basically, what we're looking for is, to get relevant answers, right? You don't care if you get the answer from Google or from an LLM or from your grandma, whatever, right? If it works, it works. So I think RAG is a specific technique which allows you to have some access to a memory bank when you're answering, which is relevant. I think what is also needed is some multi-turn reasoning or some like domain-specific jargon, right? That's not a RAG technique thing. So it'll be a combination of techniques that will take to basically create the intelligence that is needed. But I think, I always share with people like, we don't realize, but 3.5 billion people on the planet do not have reliable internet, right? 97% of US is rural, right? So actually physical AI is just starting. There's a slight hiccup with the hardware, but it's coming. And I think soon the dreams of IoT that we all, thought about might come true because language is becoming such a universal interface to talk to this technology. Like we already have these IoT models and our devices are already smart. It was all restricted to coders and developers to be able to interact with them. And now everyone will be able to ask them questions about their state and data and all of these things. And I think that is the exciting opportunity for physical AI to really help people in the real world. Yeah.
I'd also just mention that, as Dhruv said, it's not so much an either or between RAG or fine-tuning. It's really about identifying the orchestration layer to be able to parse the user's intent and then route the query to the appropriate place. There are so many amazing decision support models that have been developed by startups, by universities and land-grant institutions, and that have been validated and ground truth at a farmer and farm level, that we shouldn't assume that these non-deterministic large language models are somehow going to be better than. Rather, what we can do is make these models much more accessible so that the interface to them can be in natural language, multimodal, voice, text, image formats, but still call those types of calculator tools that a lot of these researchers have spent years developing. And so I think I would really think about it as something that we need to focus a lot more energy on the orchestration layer to know how do we align the orchestration layer to understand what the person is going for and where should we route the person's query to the appropriate source of information that the farmers can ultimately trust.
Okay, good. Any other questions? Okay, I'll come around. Here you go.
Thank you. So, question for anyone on the panel. Rishi mentioned the sorry. Rishi mentioned something related to curating info for the user to analyze. A question that I have is, to what extent do you think, especially in the short term, that AI will be useful for actually doing the analysis, or for, as Ricken was saying, routing to the correct place to do the analysis? Basically, the computer doing the analysis for you and then presenting that analyzed info to the user, or visualizing the information for the user to analyze themselves. Where do you think, in the short term, most of the work will be done? Because a case can be made that LLMs and other AI technology currently is just not really practical to trust to do the analysis itself.
I can I can share some light on that. So, I think it's about using the right tool for the right task, right? LLMs are probabilistic, right, by design, right? If you try to make a probabilistic thing deterministic, how? How is that going to work, right? It's a language model. Use it for language, you know. Use a vision model for vision. Use a regression model. Use a SAM2 for, detection, right? So, and then, if you are able to combo the right models, then you can get intelligence, which is how human intelligence is also, right? It's not like how you play chess is how you cook or any of those things, right? Like you have task-based intelligences that you tune over time, and that's how. So I think our approach to this AGI has been kind of over ambitious to make one model that knows everything, but as things are, becoming more ROI based, we're realizing, okay, we can use a combo of models which is relevant to that. That's all we need, and we make that available on device, and then you use Solotech. But that's the kind of philosophy, right? Like I think people are realizing, use language models for language, use vision models for vision, use a prediction model for prediction, and then use the language translation layer to figure out the intent or orchestration or even the persona you want to have with that orchestration. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to build on to what Dhruv is saying, so like if I take John's example from earlier, right, where they got some 700,000 different documents, and I think Digital Green does the same thing. As a human, it is impossible to know what's in this 700,000 documents, right? And to come up with a set of what are the best case answers for that specific question the user has, and what John was talking about is like this model is able to digest all of this information and come back to you with what it thinks is the best possible answer, a set of possible answers. And what to do, that agency is still with the human actor in that case, right? I think that's sort of where we are. In the future, you might go to a point where you might say, okay, I'm going to give a little bit more agency to this model. For example, if you're planning a trip and you say, I want to go to, Austin, you guys are from Austin, right? I want to go to Austin, these are my parameters, and if you find a ticket which fits within this, I am also going to give you access to my credit card, book my ticket, right? And in that case, you're giving agency to the model to actually execute a task for you. I think that is coming. In some cases, you already see that. I mean, a lot of the equipment that you see here, if you look at a see and spray machine, right, it is actually, doing the analysis in real time, making a decision because you have told the model, say, you can make a decision and activate the spraying mechanism. So you already see this happening in agriculture. You will see more and more of that happening in other parts within agriculture and outside of agriculture as well. And so it will depend on what is it that we as human actors want these models to do, and then we'll have to track it and monitor it to say, is it doing the things that we want them to do? So I think there's a lot to come. As John said, we are right at the beginning of this revolution, and a lot more interesting and exciting things are going to happen over the next few years.
All right, any more questions for the panel? Going once, going twice, no more questions? Michael, did you want to offer some closing comments real quick? Here you go.
Yeah, we still have a little time. We can kind of continue the discussion here. One thing that was interesting to me, I saw it reported earlier this week that Amazon has some of their future plans include possibly 600,000 jobs that will be taken up by robots to kind of continue the growth at Amazon. And would love to kind of hear your guys' thoughts overall on labor. I know a lot of farmers are turning to AI because they can't get labor, or that's why automation is so in demand. How does AI, in your guys' view, kind of change the labor force? Is it more of a job creator for in this side of things than a loser?
Yeah. So I think I'm seeing this a lot more, especially this year, with these the next generation of robots coming in. So obviously the first response, emotional response is, oh, they're gonna take our jobs, right? Farming is done, we're done. But the clever farmers, they don't think like that. They think, oh, Now 90% of my farming done. Now I can have a bigger farm. Now I can, instead of paying $60,000 a year for this worker who's seasonal and can get sick and have to negotiate with the other people how much I pay him, I can have 2 robots for $30,000 each, and they will work 24/7 on the farm at night, give me reports, do all of these things. And it might get damaged, but these companies are having servicing plans and the motor need fixing, and I can fix some pneumatic systems myself. So farmers are kind of getting into this to rev up this physical world robotics revolution. What is missing is most of the robots that you're seeing here might be made by big companies and available at a very high price point. That price point is coming down. So basically, the hardware supply chain for AI, as well as the next generation of motors, is catching up in 2026. And what we're seeing is a lot more jobs associated around robotics and AI. So you're going to have more motor repairmen. We need more motor manufacturing in the US. We need more chip manufacturing in the US. We actually need a lot more jobs to be able to, first of all, make the current infrastructure more resilient, and as well as scale for all the 300 million people we have here. Not there's a lot of people still in poverty, not getting food every day because we don't have the transportation infrastructure and agriculture down, right? So these robots are going to automate some of the jobs, but the big problems of automation are still left, and it allows for these workers to transition into teleoperation jobs or jobs around these robots to extend this work. It's like your tractor is becoming smarter. You're still going to be using your tractor and just managing a bigger plot and doing more things with it. Once we started getting better HD TVs, we didn't stop watching TV. We created better content and started building MetaQuest to have 3D content now, right? So I think that's the nature of physical AI as well, and we're looking forward to a great revolution ahead. Yeah.
I can mention that in India, pre versus post-COVID, the number of farmers actually increased from 200 million farmers to 260 million farmers. And I just got back from China, and China still has 1 million extension agents on the ground, even after all their economic growth and various tech transformation that has happened there. So I think what is more likely to happen is that farmers and those in these allied agricultural livelihood spaces are going to actually be able, with these tools of AI, get more into higher order value creation and therefore add greater income back into these rural economies, which are so critical around the world. And I think that's the real opportunity with AI.
And I think this is a really important topic. It's something that I really enjoy talking to the leaders in agriculture innovation to get their take. Because, for example, one of the farmers that I met who told me about this Crop Wizard tool, Andrew Nelson, he leads his family farm in Farmington, Washington. They do wheat and lentil. What he explains to me is that AI solutions level the playing field for him as a family farmer, where he's in an ecosystem dominated by bigger companies who have like easy access or easier access to the data analysis and the new technologies that as these AI solutions become more and more accessible, again, as an open source, if it's released for free and really tapping into the collective innovation, it now empowers farmers to have better outcomes, not necessarily to replace the jobs, but even just to equip existing staff to be able to have better quality control, to have better distribution of information and decision making in ways that just weren't possible before. So I think there are a lot of dynamics here, but from what I hear from the agriculture community who's leaning into this innovation, they see so much potential here, and especially in ways that is very practical as a tool that's not going to replace what someone does, but helps them do it much better and get better results.
Yeah, I think maybe certain jobs will change. Like when you say I'm in farming, it might mean a certain set of activities that you do as a farmer. In the future, that set of activities that you do as a farmer might look different than what it is today, right? And so then the question becomes, how do you learn those new skills? And I think this is a question for people with kids, universities, like how do you train the next set of leaders so that they can be effective, they can earn a living, and actually create value within society? I think that's a very difficult question. Technology transitions can be challenging for people who cannot adapt quickly, and it is not easy to adapt quickly, right? It takes time, and depending on sort of your attitude and your age and all of that, like things matter. It's, young people or children pick up new skills very quickly. As you get older, becomes more and more difficult to learn new skills, right? And so I don't think we should just say like, oh, this is going to be great for everybody. I don't think so. There are going to be some losers and some winners in this. People who cannot adapt to new skill sets, new ways of working will have a negative impact, and people who can do that will see probably outsized gains, right? And that has happened in every technology transition, go back in human history. And so I don't think we should just ignore that, oh, it's all going to be great. Yes, it will be great for a lot of people, and in the long term it will be very good, but how do we help some of the people transition so that they don't get left behind, or they don't feel a lot of anxiety and resentment towards these new things, right? I think that's something that we should keep in mind as well.
Yeah, and just to kind of close it out, I know sitting here thinking about all of the data that the machines collect and all of the information that farmers have and the companies have, and I'm sort of wondering, does the models get enough of that data in it, and is there something that needs to happen where we open up the data? It's such a sensitive topic with farmers providing that to their corporate partners, but at the same time having that data and being able to utilize it as a society to produce more food and would be obviously amazing. How does the data component get fixed or answered?
Yeah, so there's innovation happening in this as well. There are certain fields that necessitate decentralized data training. There's a whole technique called federated learning where you don't need to send your data, you just share your models which are anonymized, and then you can create more consensus models, right? So people are very privacy aware, people are very aware of this. Industries like forensics, medical, it's like a critical thing for them to figure this out. So yeah, so in the future, and also there's an engineering issue, right? When you have robots walking around collecting all this, multimodal data, where do you store all of it? How do you train all of it? There's just infrastructure problems around this. So there's a whole wave of edge AI, edge training, decentralized training coming, which is going to be very effective. You won't have to share your data, maybe some models. Maybe you'll have more control of the data you share and what you can potentially license. If there's a consortium of people who agree that we'll share our crop data and our medical data, and that builds better models for everyone, I think we'll see more of those initiatives, and I think folks here are best positioned to make something like that happen. But yeah, I think as engineering is translating into use cases, we're getting better at making it better for humans.
And I would just really emphasize what Dhruv just mentioned there, that with an open source approach to AI models, you do not need to share your data back to a company like Meta, because it can be downloaded. The developers can control the data processing and storage. So there are data secure ways to tap into these benefits, but it's really just a matter of finding the right solution, finding the right vendor that you want to work with. But there's not necessarily this that may be the final word. I don't know, Michael.
give John maybe just a moment to wrap it up. And
There's no need to make a choice necessarily between data security and AI benefits. With an open source approach, developers like Digital Green, like Solotech and others are able to use your data in a controlled way that can even run on premises or run according to your data needs. So something to really lean into, excited to learn more from this community about how you're maybe already using our models, or I'd encourage you to find new ways and help us learn together.
all right, anyone else with any closing remarks?
Yeah, I think we have to be careful with, because it's going to create information asymmetries, right? Because somebody has access to a lot more data than you have, and so they have access to intelligence that you don't have. And so organizations will have to be very clear in how they're going to use the data, right? And use the data in the way they said they're going to use it. I mean, there's this funny cartoon I saw a couple of days ago. It's some politician, he's talking to a kid, and the kid is telling the politician, like, hey, my dad doesn't like what you're doing. And the politician says to him, he's not your dad. So that's sort of an example of information asymmetry. And so you have to be very careful. Like, for example, if I have access to all the different seed varieties that farmers are using and what kind of yields they are getting, if I use that information to say, I'm going to jack up prices for these varieties because they're yielding more, like, that's not going to be a good day. Like, people are not going to be willing to share that data with you, right? So say what you're going to use the data for and use it only for those purposes, so that you can build the trust with the people who have the data to share it with you, so that we can create value together, right? So I think that's going to be very important.
And the thing I'd also add is, I think there is an opportunity, just like how the big tech folks are developing general purpose AI models in the open source domain, and seeing that as an opportunity that actually advances their corporate interests. For certain types of data, that is perhaps in the pre-competitive space, coming together as a community in the agricultural domain to fine-tune some of these models, to power other organizations' own services, applications, is a great opportunity that I think us in the agricultural space sometimes prematurely think that we need to kind of silo things off. And the other bit I was going to mention is that we don't need to reinvent the wheel when it comes to some of these federated approaches. There's already industry standards like Model Context Protocol, MCP, that the AI big tech folks have already agreed to. So rather than our ag space trying to think that these are unique problems for our space to protect, farmers' data from exploitation, which is obviously very important, there's just existing standards that we can piggyback off of without having to invent from scratch ourselves.
Thank you so much, everyone.
So let's thank Michael and the panel for a great session here.